On to our first session, which is an overview of regional trail projects. And since I've got the podium, I'll start. So as you know, Madison County Transit is not just a bike trail agency, we're also a public transportation agency. We are comprised of 16 member townships here in Madison County, not even the whole county, but 16 townships. In addition to the MCT trail system, we also operate a fixed route bus system, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, our green and white buses, a runabout paratransit service for elderly and disabled individuals, and a lot of folks don't know this, we operate Ride Finders, which is the regional rideshare program, the carpool vanpool program for the entire St. Louis region. You know, we like to say that we at MCT, because of our bus system and because of our trail system, are both literally and figuratively connecting the communities of Madison County. There's so few things that we can all agree on, that we can all come together on as people and as communities, and quality of life, livability, trails are one of those things that we all have in common. So we're excited to have you all here today. So a vision for the trails. Again, in many ways, you know, this is Jerry's vision. This interconnected network of bikeways built on these former rail corridors that not only preserve those corridors. You know, in many communities, those rail corridors, when they were abandoned, they were just sold off to adjacent property owners and pretty well gone. And to reassemble those corridors is not only incredibly time consuming, it's expensive. And it's, you know, in some cases very difficult. So to have preserved those corridors, close to 140 miles of former rail corridors is almost unheard of. We're creating linear parks, providing a family-friendly recreation option, improving real estate values, connecting trails and transit, and enhancing the quality of life for our residents and visitors. Unlike a lot of systems where there's just one single trail that goes in, out and back, our trails are an interconnected network of trails that form a series of 7 loops of varying lengths so that you can go for a ride and not see the same scenery twice, which is kind of nice. You can see the different links of the loops there. 138 miles currently and counting. We have 12 distinct bikeways that you can see represented on the map here in various colors. And as the National Association of Realtors will attest, access to walking and biking trails is one of the most sought-after amenities by new home buyers. Our trails are separated from the roadway. They're called Class 1 bikeways. They're not on the road. It's not a bike lane. It's not a shared situation on a street. They are completely separated from the road, creating a safe and family-friendly experience for all trail users, regardless of your ability, regardless of your age. And we have been working for the last 25 years to have as few at-grade crossings as possible. Here's our 162 bridge for the MCT Goshen Trail. We have 50 bridges and 23 tunnels in our system. And linear parks, because many of our trails are on these corridors that are 50, 100, in some cases 200 feet wide, we have these fantastic greenways that meander through our communities in Madison County. And together, they form over 1,500 acres of green space in Madison County. And of course, trails and transit. MCT is one of the few completely integrated bus and bikeway systems in the Midwest, if not the country. And we're proud of the fact that folks can use our buses and use our trails for kind of a buzz term, but the first mile, last mile, because our buses have bike racks, and increasingly more and more of our bus stops are also at trailheads. And then another program that was initiated a few years back, we have these ruggedized police patrol bikes. We've given them to 8 different municipalities in Madison County, a total of 19 bikes. And not only do the officers patrol our trails, they can obviously use them to patrol their communities. And there is something about interfacing with an officer on a bike that's very approachable and that people really enjoy. Okay, so let's talk about a few of the recently completed MCT Trails projects. The Pleasant Ridge Park Connector in Maryville recently made a connection. It wasn't that this was a long connection, just a 300-foot connection, but it had to span quite a ravine with the Schoolhouse Creek. And we received some grant funding in order to do that from from IDNR. We recently opened phase 2 of the MCT Silver Creek Trail in Troy. This runs parallel to US 40 and is kind of the second extension of this trail. The first one went from our park and ride lot there on US 40, the Troy Park and Ride lot, to Spring Valley Road, and this one takes it to Formosa. We've recently started adding interpretive panels, and some of you maybe have seen these on our trails in Glen Carbon. We worked with the Village of Glen Carbon and their Historical Society in order to develop these. Our team at MCT did the design, and they're fantastic. It's on a high-pressure laminate panel, UV resistant, as vandal resistant as we could make them, but they're also ADA accessible, so they are positioned in such a way so that users of all abilities can enjoy the history of an area, and we're looking to expand that program as well. We recently initiated a commemorative tree and bench program whereby you can purchase a tree or bench with a plaque that is placed along the trail of your choosing. And in your packets that are on your table, there's this is kind of turning into an advertisement. There is an order form if you would like to honor a family member, a friend, a business, an organization. This is a great way to do it. And wayfinding signage. This is something that we have tried to figure out for a long time, and so we are giving this a shot. We have developed a series of what we call trail junctions. These are places where 2 or more trails meet, and so we're branding these junctions, and we are setting up this wayfinding system throughout the trails. So far, the feedback has been really positive. We know it's not perfect. We know that we're adding a lot of signs that are creating a bit of a maintenance headache, but we also know that a lot of the trails look alike, and so it's helpful for folks, especially those not from our area, to be able to navigate the system. All right, so here's currently what we're working on. The MCT Schoolhouse Trail Tunnel in Collinsville. We're proud to be working with the city of Collinsville and the Illinois Department of Transportation to put in a 135-foot long tunnel under 157. This is near the Culvers in Collinsville. Cars fly through this area. I think there's something like 15,000 vehicles that come through this section every day. Currently, individuals and families have to get across 5 lanes of traffic, and so we're happy to be putting this tunnel in. The MCT Monarch Valley Trail, this is here in Edwardsville, and it's being constructed on an old interurban streetcar line. It starts at Emerson Avenue and goes to Irma Avenue. It's on a piece of right-of-way that MCT has owned for many years, and this is a neat trail. It's going to be a pollinator pathway for the migrating monarch butterfly. The Mct Eastgate Connector. We're extending a trail from our Mct Eastgate and Confluence Trail over to our new Eastgate Park and Ride lot behind Eastgate Plaza in East Alton. The Formosa West Trail. This is a project we've been working on for a few years. This is one of those situations where we are trying to reassemble a corridor that was sold off decades ago. This is a corridor of the old Pennsylvania Railroad that I think was abandoned back in the 1950s. And so we are reassembling this corridor, which will extend from the Goshen Trail on the right-hand side of the slide, or the east side of the slide, to the Collinwood neighborhood in Collinsville. Kind of runs along, Canteen Creek there. Formosa East Trail. This is another big project. On the other side, on the east side of the Goshen Trail, we are in the process of designing and constructing a trail that will not only get to Formosa Road and to US 40, but will actually bridge US 40 and connect to the Silver Creek Trail. What's exciting about this is then it will connect the entire city of Troy into the whole MCT trail system. We are in the process, some of you know, of making some improvements to the Nickel Plate Trail. This is the trail. It's unincorporated Madison County east of 143 to Blackburn Road. We are paving this trail, but in the process we had to replace a couple of culverts that had been failing, and we are adding a new bridge to this section as well. This is a major project that we've been working on for quite a while, and there's still quite a bit of work to do. Mct Confluence Trail, this is along the river there, kind of across from the old power plant on your way into Alton along the Berm Highway. There's a section of the Confluence Trail that has long been on just kind of an access road. The problem with that is it often floods. It's not if, it's when. It floods a lot. And so we've received an IDNR Bikeway grant to raise that portion of the trail up and separate it completely from the roadway. Yellowhammer Trail and Bridge, this is on the SIUE campus. This is another big project that we received a Rebuild Illinois grant to fund. It extends the Delight Morris Trail on the SIUE campus, kind of the northeast side of the Delight Morris Trail. As you know today, some of you know the campus, the university has built a trail that goes up to New Pogue Road. So this will actually extend the trail on a portion of what was called the Yellowhammer alignment. Again, the Yellowhammer was another old streetcar that ran through the area, and so MCT has purchased 5 acres in order to make that connection to the Goshen Trail. This is a pretty critical connection from our trail system to the SIUE campus, and one of the reasons why this has been so difficult is there is a 250-foot ravine with a 75-foot drop that we will be bridging over the Delaplane branch. So it's going to be a beautiful trail. It will open up that Delaplane branch valley for trail users. Nature trail improvements, this is currently happening. We are this frontage road, this access road that is on the nature trail. This is in the Pontoon Beach area under 255. We are paving that section of the trail, which is causing some angst for trail users that are used to being able to make their way on the nature trail, but when it's done, it's going to be so much better. Okay, and future MCT Trails projects. So here's just a little sampling of some of the items that we are working on. We are working with officials and with consultant engineers on extending our MCT Goshen Trail, which ends today in the Wanda area, north up to 143, across 143, and to find our way to Wood River and Bethalto. And so it's a major project, but we have already engaged an engineer to do an alignment study for us. So that is in the works. The Mct Venice Connector, this is another important project for a community that still has all their railroads. Venice is, as most of you know, literally surrounded by railroad tracks. And so we want to come alongside the community of Venice and improve not just the trail access, but bicycle pedestrian access for this community that is otherwise just completely surrounded by railroads. The MCT Wood River to Confluence Trail, we're working with Wood River and again, still looking for that magical alignment to make the connection to the Confluence Trail from Wood River. And Monarch Valley Trail Phase 2, we want to get that trail to the Nickel Plate behind Richard's Brick over here. So that will be a few years down the road, but that is in the works. Alton Greenway, this is an important project for us also, and working with the city of Alton on finding a way to create a separated trail of some kind through the heart of Alton on Broadway or some other side street in order to improve bike ped access in that area. The MCT Nature Trail in Granite City, we want to improve a stretch of that trail that is currently in an alley where garbage trucks operate and so on, and that's so we want to create a proper separated trail for them. Silver Creek Trail, this is a big project that we are beginning to prepare conceptual plans for to extend the trail from where it will end at C.A. Henning School in Troy, along US 40 to St. Jacob, and eventually to the city of Highland. Godfrey Trails expansion, always working with Godfrey to assist them with what they are wanting to accomplish trail-wise. And then the MCT Schoolhouse Bridge. We're in the process of developing plans to construct a bridge over Pleasant Ridge Road in Maryville for the MCT Schoolhouse Trail. All right, so giving you a lot of information in a short amount of time, but what I want to do now is talk about how your community can get involved, and then I'm going to quit talking and hand it off to somebody else. So I think the first step is to consider your community's needs. Where are the opportunities for trail connections? Where are the opportunities to improve walkability, bikeability? Discuss with your community leaders. We saw several mayors here and elected officials and so on here. Discuss with your community leaders those possible connections and work with us. Come talk to us. Come talk to MCT about the kind of projects that you're interested in. This next one I think is really important, and that is to pursue a bicycle pedestrian master plan for your community. This is something that the ACT board, which I'm going to talk about in just a second here, has identified as really a critical piece. We want communities to go through a public planning process in order to define and determine what are the best corridors, what are the best connections, and so on and so forth. We also want that plan that gets developed to be vetted and approved by the public body. And so these bicycle pedestrian master plans are really a great way to do that. And we would love to be a county. We would love for Madison County to be a county where everybody has a bike ped plan. And so that's something that we're hoping occurs. We hope that you will also consider applying for an ACT Community Actions Grant. Agency for Community Transit, as you know, as many of you know, has initiated a grants program, and trail connections, shared use paths, improving bike and walkability are eligible projects. And so in your packets, there is a sheet with information on our ACT Community Action Grants program. Again, we really want you to have a bike ped plan. In order to receive funding, we want to make sure it's gone through a planning process. We really think that's important. So if you have questions, encourage you to visit our website on here, actinfo.org, for information about our community action grants. We also have our grants coordinator, Miriam Bell. Miriam, wave your hand. She is here today, and she would be happy to talk with you about projects, eligible projects. Again, we want to help. We want to come alongside you and help make this happen. And finally, I'm going to announce that we will be hosting a series of focus area workshops. Instead of having a big group, as nice as this is, drilling down with some smaller groups, a mayor's roundtable, a public works roundtable, et cetera, where we can just sit and talk with various community leaders, various stakeholders about some very specific items. And so we'll be announcing those this summer and hope that as many of you as possible can participate in those. And there's my contact information. Okay, I am going to quit talking and hand the mic off to some of our other guests that we have here today. We're honored to have with us Ken Sharkey, who is the Executive Director of St. Clair County Transit District. St. Clair County is our counterpart, obviously to the south, and much like MCT, they have also dipped their toe into the trail water and are doing some fantastic projects that continue to expand the reach of bikeability in our region. So, Ken, thank you for being here. It's all yours.
Okay, thank you, SJ. That was a terrific presentation. You have an awful lot going on to building on your past history. So appreciate being invited to this forum. and look forward to working with the Madison County Transit system more going forward in the future. Our engineering firm that works with us quite a bit is Tuvin Wade Merchant. And this slide here basically shows the overview of our trail system in St. Clair County. So really the spine of our system is the Metrolink bike system. So in the past and what we're trying to do in the future is to tie in to that Metrolink bike system to increase mobility and to get people on transit, trains and buses. There's a color-coded thing. The map's a little hard to read from this distance. We'll try to break it down a little bit here. We have connecting trails to the system. We have trails under construction and some that are under design right now. So the connecting, some of the connecting trails, we just finished up this year, St. Ellen Park. We did a little partnership with the city of O'Fallon. They had a trail that lasted about a half a mile from Hartman Lane, and we connected that trail over to Old Collinsville Road, improved both the half a mile trail that the city of O'Fallon had, and the St. Clair County Transit District has taken over this trail, and it's a mile long. So it connects from Hartman Lane to Old Collinsville Road, which eventually is going to tie into our system. We're going to talk a little bit about later on what we're doing on Old Collinsville Road. We worked with the city of Shiloh on this Engelman Trail connector that actually connects into the Metrolink bike system. And we have a trail from the Air Mobility Trail, from Scott Air Force Base that also connects into the trail. We work with the city of Swansea and Belleville on this Richland Trail Creek system that ties into the Metrolink bike trail system. And then currently under construction this year, we have Old Collinsville Road phases 1 and 2. There's actually 4 phases of this trail system that goes from 161 near the Dairy Queen in Belleville and comes all the way down to St. Clair Bowl, Ashland. So it connects through Swansea and connects to Fairview Heights. And it will also connect into the St. Ellen Park Trail. And this trail also will connect into the former Clinton Hills Golf Community, which has also been taken over by the village of Swansea, and they're making a park there. So we're making an effort to connect parks into the trail system that ties into the Metrolink bike system. So phases 1 and 2 are currently under construction. Right now, phases 3 and 4 are under design. Under design, the board just authorized 2 new trails for study with Tuvin Wade Merchant. We have a Sullivan Drive trail that will go in from 161 in Belleville and will connect to Frank Scott Parkway. And there's a lot of subdivisions that are along that trail system. So we're trying to tie in a lot of neighborhoods to have easy access to the trail system. When you make it easy, I think that's when people will be able to use the trails quite a bit. So a lot of new subdivisions that are there, a lot of new growth. And so this trail is under study. We hope to, have that done within about a year, and then maybe try to go to construction maybe in the next year or so. Also, we have this Tecklenburg Trail system, which we're trying to connect into the west end of Belleville, access to the Metrolink bike trail system. So the county's got a forest preserved named after former state's attorneys back from the 1940s, Tecklenburg, who donated a bunch of land. So we're trying to create a trail that goes through a really nice wooded area. So it'll open up access to the west end of Belleville to our Metrolink bike trail system. It'll come through this heavily wooded area, across the creek, bridge over 161. We have to work with IDOT on that, and then we'll tie into the Metrolink bike system on the other end. So we hope to get that funded, and we believe we have that in place. Also, one of the main focuses, and I think that's what Madison County Transit is trying to do, they're trying to connect parks and schools. So there's a number of schools that are along the trail system. This year is our second annual summer riding program, so we have a promotion, a very public promotion. We're trying to get people on the trail system And we have a lot of like little rewards where we give out water bottles and bikes and trail trackers and things like that for people that just log their miles on the system. It's kind of like a summer reading program for kids where they can track their reading over the summer and get awards. So we've got a big campaign to try to make a lot of awareness about our trail system. It's, you know, I didn't know too much about the trail system myself until I joined the agency about 4 years ago, and I've lived in the community, you know, for many, many years. So I knew a lot more about the Madison County Trail system that's been well established for many, many years, and I rode that system quite a bit. And, you know, we're most proud of partnering with Madison County Trail System, and under Jerry's leadership from many years ago, we kicked in about $2 million to connect this Goshen Trail into the city of O'Fallon. And we're looking forward to more opportunities to work with the Madison County to be able to connect more of our system into the Madison County Trail system, make it more of a regional system. So we're looking forward for those opportunities. We have, you know, a grant for Riverfront Trail, connecting basically Casino Queen and East St. Louis up to the Madison County Trail system along the riverfront, but we're having a little bit of difficulty with Ameren, you know, trying to get access, you know, across, you know, the area we need to. And we don't want to get into a situation where we put a lot of money into a system and then have a trail, if we got to go down on the levee, that's going to get flooded quite a bit. So we need to find a way to kind of work around that situation where when we invest funds into that kind of trail system, that'll be able to be used most year round and not be flooded out four months of the year. So we got to kind of figure out a way to get people around the table to kind of work through those things. And some of them are pretty difficult to do. So we've been focusing on some of these other trail systems while we work out that situation. This slide here just shows us, and we have some handouts, I think that's available if anybody wants this, or we can send this around, but it shows a lot of the investments that have been made into the trail system in the past year. So we had $32 million invested. We are, you know, doing a Metrolink extension to Mid-America Airport. So the Metrolink bike system is about 14.5 miles long. And when that extension gets out to Mid-America Airport, we're going to also add about another 5.5 miles of trail to Mid-America Airport. So that'll, you know, basically add about another 25% to our trail system on that. So that's going really well. We're going to have a bridge that's going to go over Wary Road to try to make it a little bit more safe to people around traffic out there as well. And then we talked a little bit about the Old Council Road Trail, the 4 phases, 2 under construction ride, 2 under design, and the Tecklenburg and the Sullivan Drive Trail that's underway right now. And that's pretty much it. So tried to keep it to 10 minutes, my allotted time, and be available. I'll be around if anybody has any questions, suggestions, or any ideas how to navigate some of the difficulties that we face and to support our system. So thank you, SJ. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Look forward to continuing to work with you on both trails and transit-related projects. Okay, our next guest is Brian Werner, Executive Director of MEPRD, the Metro East Park and Recreation District. Brian is, I saw you've been there 17 and a half years. Man, that flew. And he's been Executive Director since 2017. MEPRD is a fantastic partner obviously for both MCT and St. Clair County Transit District, and we couldn't do what we do without their support, without their cash really, and their planning support. So Brian, thank you.
Well, good morning. Before I get started, I just wanted to make note the fact that within the folder, there is a handout from MEPRD, double-sided, and it contains most of the information that will be presented today. In addition to that, you will find our website, meprd.org, which is really the business side and the business aspect of MEPRD, where you'll find information about our grant programs, information about the legislation, information about the projects that we've funded to date, et cetera. Just not more than a few weeks ago, we debuted a brand new website, metroeastrecreation.com, and it's really geared towards the residents and visitors alike that are interested in utilizing the recreation facilities that exist throughout the two-county area. So to include parks, recreation facilities, and the trails of both MCT, St. Clair County Transit District, and many others. So I think it was a terrific start hearing about the backbone of the regional trail system that exists throughout the two-county area. And what this summit about today is really where we go from there and the ribs that branch off that backbone. And then it's not good enough to just have a regional connection, a single or even a few to that regional trail system. It's thinking about your community as a whole and infrastructure related to bicycle and pedestrian within the individual communities. So that's what I'll be discussing a little bit today. So who is Meprd? We were formed in the year 2000. Our jurisdiction covers Madison and St. Clair County. It's a unique approach. The voters of the two counties approved a 1/10 of 1% sales tax. The proceeds of that tax to go towards parks, trails, recreation facilities. At that same time, as a matter of fact, Great Rivers Greenway was formed, and Mark will tell you a little bit about them here in a second. 1/10 of 1% sales tax is tacked on to eligible purchases within the two counties areas. Today, it generates approximately $6 million for the two county area, 50% of which is retained by Meprd. The other 50% is retained by the county in which the tax was generated. In Madison County, it's primarily distributed in the form of PEP grants, which I'm sure many of you have taken advantage of, and in St. Clair County, the St. Clair County grants. We're appreciative of the fact that both counties have a long-standing tradition of appointing terrific members to our board of directors. Frank Bergman, our current president, Mark Achenbach, current vice, Paul Evans, Jerry Kane, of course, Randy Randolph, and Linda Wheaton. In addition, Cole Preston is in the audience. Cole, if you would raise your hand. He's the grant coordinator. And so the two of us will be around all day, so feel free to reach out to him or I, either today, or our contact information and email address is also found in the handout. And Renee St. Peters, she is our administrative assistant. She's staffing our Collinsville office today. What we do, primarily one of two things. We partner with others for parks, trails, and recreation facility improvement and development. To date, take a look at the slide, 64 unique partners to date, equaling 218 park and trail projects throughout the two-county area. Meprd's commitment towards those 218 projects is $34 million, valued at $159 million. Of those 218 projects, approximately 50 are currently ongoing, and the value of those 50 is approximately $33 million. When we're not partnering in the form of these grant opportunities and awards, we strive to increase awareness, use, and appreciation of all the facilities we're talking about today. How? In the form of obviously our websites, social media, GIS, statistics, and all that information can be found on our websites. So this slide, the seed, the seedling, the sapling, and the trees are representative of the evolution of trail development in the two-county area since the inception of Meprd, and honestly prior to that. So you'll see it starts in the early 90s. And again, our organization was formed in 2000. But at that time, seeds were planted by organizations such as MCT under Jerry Kane's leadership. Those involved with the Sam Vidalabine Trail and the Great River Road Trail, leading from Alton to Grafton. You've got Glen Carbon, the Heritage Trail at that time. SIUE was one of the early leaders. Shortly after that, St. Clair County Transit District built their first segment of Metro Bike Link Trail. In 2000, we're up to 30 miles of shared use paths within the two-county area. Belleville and Swansea began constructing trails at that time. In 2010, we're up to 145 miles of shared use paths. Edwardsville, Highland, O'Fallon, and Shiloh entered the picture. 2015, 192 miles of trails. Lebanon, Bethalto, Wood River Township, and Mascoutah have all built trails by that time. And between that time and today, 2022, we're up to 228 miles of shared use paths within the two-county area. And we've got communities like Troy and Godfrey that have entered the mix. Between now and 2025, we're aware of no less than 22 additional miles of shared use paths, either under construction, funded, they will happen. And communities such as Collinsville, Smithton, Fairview Heights, Wood River, and Alton are all either currently creating plans or no less than talking about trail development within their communities. So there is, it's really just building that network. And again, really understanding that it isn't good enough just to have that single trail connection to the community. So this slide, the seed and the sapling and the trees are representative of the roles in trail development. So who can plant a seed within a community as it relates to trail development? And that's honestly anybody. There's many local examples here. Grassroots, to organizational leaders, to elected officials. Anybody can plant that seed, and encourage you to plant it in your community if you don't already have one. Who typically is the trees and the saplings? That being the owners and the operators and the maintainers of the trails, for the most part public entities, to include the transit districts, municipalities, park districts, even townships in our area. So what's MEPRD's role? We're the sun. We at least see ourselves as the sun and the rain and the fertilizer. Those things, and we're not alone either. We fall in a category with IDNR as it relates to the bike path grants, to ITEP, and any other federal funding, and really any other individual agency involved in the development, and it takes all of us to grow these trails. Next slide is really just a generic illustration of the steps involved in the trail development process. Again, the importance of planting that seed. The importance, similar to SJ, you'll hear from MEPRD that we've really been pushing hard on community-wide park and trail plans for your communities. So developing that plan, soliciting funding, and all the other components it takes to build these trails, building the infrastructure, and reaping the benefits. What are they? They're plenty. What's grown is obviously bike and pedestrian infrastructure, a regional recreation hub, which we're all adding to and growing over time, bicycle and pedestrian culture, which you'll hear plenty about today, recreation tourism, community, place, health, happiness, well-being, safety. If you're a friend of our Facebook page, you'll see as it relates to the local economy. Yesterday we looked out and the parking lot in Collinsville, right off the Schoolhouse Trail, is regularly filled. And we just noticed, like we do just about every day, the number of Missouri plates. So we went out there and walked the parking lot. We had 25 Missouri plates in our parking lot in Collinsville. That's a daily occurrence. Potentially not to those numbers, but certainly to that percentage in terms of what's showing up in our parking lot. And as the Facebook post mentioned, is the fact that it was around lunchtime whenever they were probably finishing up, and very likely, very few of them went home hungry. And what that means is really bringing dollars, bringing people to our communities. And we see it, again, our facility in Collinsville, we hear stories, not necessarily daily, but no less than weekly, about individuals coming to this area, whether it be from across the river or moving to this area because of the trail system, or vacationing in this area because of the trail system. So we can tell you for certain it is a draw and it adds to our local economy. How can MEPRD help? At this time, we have two primary grant programs that should start mid-May, we're thinking. Mid-July, as seen on the slide there. So the first being the Community Planning Grant Program. We're allocating $400,000 to this year's grant program, which we are encouraging, and we will fund up to 40% of community-wide bicycle, pedestrian, and/or park and recreation master plans for your community. So we are pushing both. So what's the eligibility criteria for that? It must be a public entity with either no plan or your plan must be 5 years old or greater. What if your community and your municipal plan, your comprehensive municipal plan had been published within the last 5 years? You're still eligible. What we'd like to see is a standalone detailed document pertaining specifically to bicycle pedestrian infrastructure within the communities of both Madison and St. Clair County. Our next grant program is the Park and Trail Grant Program, where we expect to allocate $3 million, an additional $1 million compared to the FY22 program, where we will fund 40% grants, $300,000 max for trail projects, and $100,000 max for park projects. So again, the anticipated grant program start date is July 13th, hoping to have that approved in the very near future. But regardless of what it looks like in the end, if you've not already signed up for our e-newsletter, would encourage you to do so. As soon as anything is approved by the board of directors, it's sent out publicly in the form of that e-newsletter, our website, and social media. So that's the best way to keep informed along the way as it relates to MEPRD. So I just want to finish with, again, stressing the importance of planting that seed, followed by, really getting a plan in place for your community, looking at the bigger picture, both internally and how you can connect to the network regionally. So, happy to answer any questions. Like I said, I will be here all day long, as well as Cole. So, thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Brian. The MEPRD is sort of, I like that, the sun. I kind of think of MEPRD as sort of our secret sauce because it gives us a competitive advantage. It really does in the state, and when we're applying for these grants, to be able to have an MEPRD that can come alongside an organization like MCT or any one of your organizations to help you get funds, to help you leverage local funds, it makes all of our dollars go further. So thanks, Brian, for everything that MEPRD does. Hey, we're running early. How many conferences do you go to that are actually running early? As my wife always reminds me, nobody complains when things go early, so leave them wanting more. Since we do have a couple of minutes, I want to recognize a few other folks that I missed. There's a lot of staff that we all have, not just at MCT, ACT, but at all the municipalities. Would the public staff that shore us up, that make us look good, that allow us to do what we do, please stand and be recognized. If you are a staff member of a community, I'm looking at several of you, please stand and be recognized for what you do. There's a lot more than that, but they're not standing. We also have three of our directors here today. Mark Steyer, our Director of Engineering, Phil Roggio, our Director of Planning and Capital Projects, and Rob Schmidt, our Director of Facilities. These individuals help us not only design the trails and get the funds and acquire the land for the trails, but then maintain them and construct them. So thank you guys. Please give these three gentlemen a round of applause. I mentioned earlier that MEPRD is our secret sauce. Apparently they have something similar on the other side of the river, and that is Great Rivers Greenway. We're fortunate in our region to have organizations like these bodies that come alongside us and help make our investment go so much further. Our next guest is from Great Rivers Greenway, and that is Mark Vogel. Mark is a planner. In fact, he is I have his title here, Planning and Project Manager for Great Rivers Greenway. where he's been for several years, and then spent 20 years prior to that with HOK and other firms planning and designing. So we're fortunate to have Mark here with us this morning to give us an update on what's going on the other side of the river. So please, Mark Vogel.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. Thanks, SJ. This is incredible. I mean, when I look at all the projects that have been presented, it's just amazing looking back at how far we have come as a community in the last 20-some years. Does anybody remember an organization back in the mid-'90s called St. Louis 2004? I mean, that was one of the things that really launched us. And I'd like to recognize my colleague in the back here, Shaughnessy Daniels. She's one of our community engagement managers now, and she was at St. Louis 2004. At the same time that we were all pushing this incredible idea for regional greenways and trails across the St. Louis region. So, as Bryan said, Graveway Greenway was created on the same day as the Metro East Park and Recreation District. We represent St. Louis City, St. Louis County, St. Charles County on the Missouri side of the river, our legislation, the enabling legislation in Missouri, is almost the same as in Illinois, and so we're really modeled the same way, and we're regionally we are unique organizations across the United States. There really is not a model for this that exists anywhere in the U.S., and so we should all be really proud of what we've created here in the St. Louis region. And our mission is to create this network of greenways that benefit the entire region, at least on the Missouri side. And we look at similar benefits as Bryan was pointing out in terms of conservation, transportation, health, community, and economy. These are the benefits that we believe that greenways are delivering to our communities. And what is a greenway? So if you go across the country, greenways mean different things to different people. In some parts of the country, greenways are watersheds. They might have more of a stronger conservation component to it. But here in the St. Louis region, we like to define greenways as a way for people to get out and explore their natural environment. And so a greenway has to have a trail. There are other amenities, there's conservation projects, but it's also about building connectivity between our communities and the destinations that make the St. Louis region a really special place. And so just some quick examples of what greenways look like. A lot of these might look familiar to the trails that you have on the Illinois side of the river. Some of them go through very natural areas. Some of them are more urban in nature, like the St. Vincent Greenway in the city of St. Louis. Sometimes we go where we can. We build on levees, and I know you all do the same thing. We don't have the benefit of as many miles of former rail as you do in Illinois. So some of the projects in Missouri are a little more difficult to do. And occasionally we build parks. This is Trojan Park in Wellston, a park that we built a few years ago in cooperation with the city of Wellston and St. Louis County, a tremendous asset to the neighborhood. And similar funding, as Bryan was describing, Great Rivers Greenway did pass the three counties in Missouri passed Proposition C in the year 2000, which provides that same 1/10 cent sales tax, of which Great Rivers Greenway receives 50%. But then in 2013, St. Louis City and St. Louis County passed an additional 3/16% sales tax. Some of that money goes to the tremendous improvements to the Gateway Arch, and then Great Rivers Greenway receives another portion of that. So we actually have, at least in fiscal year 2021, over $22 million to spend on greenway projects across the three counties. And back in 2002, 2003, we came up with this vision for this network of projects in the Great Rivers Greenway area. We call it the River Ring. And a very ambitious plan, upwards of 600 miles of planned projects. I can tell you right now, not all of these are going to get built. We don't know if 600 miles is even realistic, but we're on our way. We've built 128 miles. We have a number of projects that are under construction right now, and new greenways. We just interviewed and hired a consultant to do a new greenway in St. Charles County. And so as we advance our network on this side of the river, we're continuing to look at new projects and new ways to connect our communities together. So these are the 18 or so projects that we currently have underway in the St. Louis side. I'm going to share in more detail 3 projects with you. The first one is going to be Graveway Greenway. The second one will be the Horimont, or the Greenway on the tracks, we call it. And then finally, I'm going to talk about the Brickline, which is a really, really ambitious and exciting project we are undertaking right now in the city. So Graveway Greenway, a lot of you might know it more commonly as Grant's Trail. It's really branded as Graveway Greenway. It's our most popular, most heavily used greenway in the entire network. And it's a Rails to Trails project. And so that's one of the reasons why it's so popular, because you can get a lot of miles in. It goes through some very heavily populated areas, very few grade crossings. And we had heard for many, many years that this area in red right here, this was the connection that would finish Graveway Greenway and extend it to the river to Pear. And we had been hearing for years and years and years how important this was to finally connect these two projects together. And it took 8 years and millions of dollars to do this. You know, we kind of joke that Todd Antoine and some of the other project managers who've been there for a long time, they did the easy projects first, right, Greg? And they left the harder ones for the rest of us. And so it's getting more and more challenging to build these projects. And so this took 8 years to build. And I want to point out that we finally started construction in 2019, right when we had historic rainstorms, and the Mississippi River, it rose and it stayed high for a long time, and that backed up the river to Pear. And so it created this huge challenge. After we had spent all this time planning this greenway connection that the community desperately wanted, we ran into historic flooding. And it's really difficult to build a bridge when the river to Pear looks like that. So, throughout the quarter, the project was delayed and delayed and delayed, very frustrating. But we had a Christmas present in, December of 2019. Finally, over a 2-week period, the water level went down enough so they could get the piers in and finish construction, and this is what it looks like today. So we had a wonderful ribbon cutting, and it was a great celebration, and now it is getting incredible use. And right now we have the river to Pear connected to Graveway Greenway, Grant's Trail. It connects to the Mississippi Greenway. You can go all the way down to Jefferson Barracks, and we have an extension underway through Maplewood on Deer Creek Greenway going into Webster Groves and Brentwood. So it's really becoming a microcosm of what we're trying to build throughout the entire region, where all these greenways are coming together. So now for something a little bit different, the Greenway on the Horimont tracks. This is a new project in the city of St. Louis that runs through 7 neighborhoods on the north side, from Grand Center on the eastern end all the way to Gwen Giles Park, about the city limits on the western end, about a mile north of Forest Park. It's an old streetcar line, and it's a really, really interesting corridor. Most of it is owned by Bi-State right now. They still retain the property from when they were running streetcars. And on the outside of the streetcar line is City Alleyway. And so it's a really wide corridor. It's actually the width of the curb-to-curb cross-section of Kings Highway, if you're familiar with that. And so there's a lot of space back there. And so actually Bi-State approached GRG a number of years ago about this opportunity. You know, what if we give you the property or we sell it to you, and could you do a greenway? So it was actually Bi-State's idea. And so we didn't know. We went through a feasibility study, and we determined, and our board adopted this as a plan, that yes, we probably could build a greenway here, but it's literally going through people's backyards. And so we wanted to be very sensitive to the situation. And so we actually started, not with design, but with community engagement. And we have spent a lot of time, literally years, talking to residents, building relationships, to really understand what their concerns are, what they would like to see there, make no decisions until we have really good feedback and have this relationship built among the community. And this is what we've heard. Through education, through discussion, we have heard, yes, people would like to see this changed from an alleyway into a greenway. And we did community events. We did a pop-up greenway, tried to show people what a greenway is, what it could look like, how you use it. It's not just about recreation. It can be about transportation and connecting to bus routes and to jobs. And we did a lot of creative stuff during the pandemic. We met people out, outdoors in along the Greenway. We held events along the corridor, throughout the month of October, and just tried to make sure that we could hear from a lot of people. We had online meetings with citizen advisory committees, and again, it was all about listening and trying to understand what was important to the community. And then some really creative ideas. We tried to bring what we heard into the design aspects. And a lot of this is about branding and making it a special place, focusing on safety and lighting. On the one hand, we want to ensure that there's a lot of visibility so that people understand they can see what's happening. But also, you want to balance that with a sense of privacy, that people want to protect what's happening in their own backyards. And then a lot of street crossings. This is a corridor that crosses a lot of north-south running streets. And so if we can work with the city on doing some traffic calming measures and also work with Bi-State on doing some enhancements to bus stops and things like that, just really make this a system that works for a lot of different people and provide those safe crossings where possible. Okay, the final project I want to talk about is Brickline Greenway. Maybe you've heard about this one. It's been in the news quite a bit. The roots of this is actually what was called Shoto Greenway. It goes back, the planning for this, over 20 years. It really started out as an idea to connect the Arch Grounds with Forest Park. We got to a certain level of design and planning in the early 2000s. The economy tanked. There were regional priorities that shifted. We started looking at the Arch Grounds, and this project, the idea for Shoto Greenway was really put on a shelf for a long time. And then a few years ago, we dusted off. We said, the time is right to start looking at Shoto Greenway again. And we actually did an international design competition, and all the teams that were selected, they all, throughout their community engagement, came up with the idea that this doesn't, the real value of this is not just as an east-west running corridor through, industrial areas and, the central corridor of the city. It really needs to stretch north and south into the neighborhoods, north to Fairground Park and south to Tower Grove. And again, this is all these ideas that come out of community engagement, why community engagement is so important. We wouldn't have this ambitious plan if it wasn't for hearing from residents. And so, the other thing that's unique about this is that it's kind of a system within a system. This isn't just one line on a map that connects A and B. These are a system or a series of parallel routes and loops, and again, trying to touch as many residents as possible with this project. Again, a lot of meetings with different stakeholder groups, residents, neighborhood associations, trying to listen to people as much as possible, understand what's important, what some of the opportunities might be in different neighborhoods. And also looking at comparable projects from around the country. We're not interested in reinventing the wheel, and we know that there's a lot to learn from some of these other very ambitious urban greenway projects around the country. And so we've actually gone to some of these cities, we've seen what they've done, we've heard from them about what works and what doesn't, and we're also learning about the incredible return on investment. And so when we put public dollars in on these projects, we can demonstrate that in other communities, there's a massive return on the private side in making these communities stronger and lifting up our local economies. Some of these regions, like Atlanta, you might say, well, they've got incredible growth, that's not relevant. But Indianapolis is relevant, and some of the neighborhoods where these projects have been built are very, very comparable to St. Louis. We're also looking at Detroit right now, and we've got some examples in Detroit with the Joe Louis Greenway and the DeKinder Cut that are also very relevant to what we're doing here in St. Louis. And so I also want to point out that we've got a number of active corridors that we're currently planning. The overall vision is for about up to 20 miles of greenways in the city as part of Brickline Greenway. We're actively designing about 10 miles right now, and so it's very ambitious. If you add the Greenway and the Horimont tracks to that, you can see how much impact this could have on the city of St. Louis. And just like what you're doing here in St. Clair County, we're also looking at how we can use this as a first mile, last mile connection that ties in with Metrolink. Both the existing line and potentially even the north side, south side line that is being looked at again right now. And so the very first project of what was then Shoto Greenway was actually the new Metrolink station at Cortex. Gravers Greenway was a partner on securing a Tiger grant to build that new station, and we built a quarter-mile section of Greenway. Not very long, of course, but it does get a lot of use. It really functions as an extension of the Metrolink. I apologize for this photo, not very good. But the Bi-State was a fantastic partner in this project. And we worked hand in hand to design the station and the Greenway, knowing that the users were going to be the one and the same. And so we even tucked the vending machines for the tickets, the ticket vending, under the same covered bike parking area, where for scooters and bicycles and things like that. You can see that it's branded in a certain way with the canopy on the station back there. We branded the signs, with Cortex, GRG, and Metro. So it was really, really a great partnership. And one of the best outcomes of this project is it demonstrated to a lot of the partners in the area that the Brickline and Shoto Greenway was real. And if we can build this one starter stretch of it, quarter mile long, we've made a commitment now that we're going to build a lot more of it. We even added lighting to it. Most of our projects, they're used as recreational trails, but we know that in the city and where we're tying in with transit, we have people who are going to be using it, when it's dark out, either early in the morning, late at night, going to Cardinals games, going to jobs, going to school, especially in the wintertime when it's dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Lighting was very, very important. And so our projects are going to, in these areas, are going to include lighting. And then, where do we go from here? We were just awarded a CMAQ grant, Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Grant, for $4 million to extend that one project from the Cortex station to the Grand Station. And so this one is currently under design, and we're intending to be under construction in 2026. So, it's a very, very narrow corridor. Again, we're in the middle of the city, lots of active land uses and new development. But I mentioned Bi-State being a great partner. We're actually going to build this greenway within the Bi-State Metro right-of-way. This used to be a 3-track alignment, and the northern track was pulled out of service a long, long time ago. And Bi-State has used it for storage and for maintenance and things like that. Well, they're allowing us to build the greenway right along the tracks, similar to what you have in your Metro Bike Link. But an urban project that will extend between the Cortex and Grand stations. And then some imagery about what that hopefully will look like. Trying to make this a very inviting, comfortable place to be. This is looking, if you're familiar with IKEA, this is if you're standing underneath I-64 looking east into the Foundry development, and what that might look like. Use the former Norfolk Southern track, that trestle that goes over Vanderveer, and go right into the heart of the Foundry development, kind of like a mini version of the High Line. And then this view is taken from the middle of the Foundry, right at GRG's office. And so we actually have a sign on our building right now that says future Brickline Greenway. We're really, really excited about eventually having this right outside of our front door. This is looking back toward Grand Avenue, toward the east in the Ameren substation. And again, trying to make what's right now kind of an unpleasant, very industrial feel a little more inviting, using landscape and fencing, environmental graphics to make it more attractive. And then under under the Grand Viaduct at the Grand Metrolink station, partner with Metro, similar to what we did at the Cortex station, and again make this a much more inviting place to be, but also recognize that the Greenway users and the transit users, in a lot of cases, are going to be the same people. And so, make sure that this is working for everybody. And then I want to close on this. We really believe in transit-oriented development, but also transit and trail-oriented development. They don't on their own generate mixed-use development, but together they combine to add, be part of the catalyst to make a lot of these projects and make a lot of these sites a lot more valuable. And we're seeing that in Cortex right now with the amount of development that's happening, and then some other planned and under construction projects that are happening, again, within this exact same corridor. And so when East-West Gateway is evaluating projects and we can demonstrate the existing use and that there's even more and more and more people coming in, that helps us score well because we believe that a lot of the users who are going to be on this corridor and connecting to transit, we're taking cars off the road and hopefully improving air quality. So that's it. Thanks. Yep. Thank you.